There is a certain kind of man who wins every negotiation before he opens his mouth. Not because he is the loudest voice at the table, because by the time he sits down, he already knows how the conversation ends. That is the version of Thomas Shelby people ask about most. Not the violence, not the suits. The way he negotiates like the outcome is already decided, and everyone else in the room is just catching up. He is not real. But the way he thinks before he speaks is one of the oldest strategic disciplines there is. 8 tactics. How to read a room, control what you reveal, and know exactly when to walk away. This is how Thomas Shelby would strategize. Watch any scene where Thomas Shelby walks into a room full of people who could be enemies. He does not speak first. He does not even sit first, half the time. He reads. Who is nervous? Who is performing confidence they do not feel? Who keeps glancing at the door? Who is actually in charge? And who only looks like they are? By the time he says a single word, he has already mapped the entire room's real hierarchy, which is rarely the same as its official one. Sun Tzu wrote that if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. Most people walk into hard conversations already thinking about what they are going to say. That is backwards. The room is speaking first, if you are quiet enough to listen. Most people are so busy rehearsing their opening line that they miss the 3 seconds of unguarded truth every room gives you before anyone starts performing. The first tactic is not a line. It is a habit. Walk in a beat slower than you want to. Say nothing for the first 10 seconds. Let your eyes do the negotiating before your mouth does. Here is the tell that gives away almost every losing negotiator. They reveal what they need before anyone asks. Watch Thomas Shelby in any deal. He states what he is offering. He almost never states what he is desperate for. The other side is left guessing whether he needs this deal or is simply willing to have it. That uncertainty is worth more than any number on the table. This is not about lying. It is about sequencing. The moment the other side knows your floor, your deadline, or your desperation, they stop negotiating with you and start negotiating against your weakness. Every piece of information you hand over for free is a card removed from your own hand. The Stoics called this guarding your prohairesis, your inner will, the one thing genuinely yours to control. What you reveal is a choice. Most people treat it like a reflex, answering questions honestly out of habit, even when honesty costs them the whole negotiation. Before any hard conversation, decide in advance exactly what you are and are not willing to say, regardless of what you're asked. Discipline the reveal. Do not let the conversation extract it from you. Thomas Shelby's most effective negotiating tool in almost every scene is a pause most people would find unbearable. Someone makes an offer. Instead of responding immediately, he says nothing. He lets the silence sit there, uncomfortable, unresolved, until the other person starts talking again, usually to fill the gap, usually revising their own offer in the process without being asked. This is a documented negotiation principle, not a screenwriting trick. Silence creates discomfort, and most people will trade information or concessions just to end that discomfort. The person who can tolerate silence longest usually extracts the better terms, simply by outlasting the other person's need to fill the air. Most of us were trained since childhood to fill silence, in conversation, in interviews, in arguments. It reads as awkward, so we rush to end it, usually by talking ourselves into a worse position. Practice holding silence for 3 full seconds after any offer, before you respond to anything. It will feel unbearable the first few times. That discomfort is exactly the leverage you're giving away by rushing to end it. Thomas Shelby almost never has a difficult conversation on someone else's terms, in someone else's space, at someone else's chosen time. He picks the location. He picks the time. He arrives early enough to control the room, not late enough to be controlled by it. Even the seating arrangement, who sits where, who has their back to the door, is rarely left to chance in these scenes. This is Sun Tzu again, more directly than any other tactic here. He who occupies the field of battle first and awaits the enemy is at ease. He who arrives later and hastens to the fight is weary. Ground chosen in advance is an advantage claimed before a single word is exchanged. Most people accept whatever meeting time, format, or setting they're handed, and then wonder why they feel outmatched before the conversation even starts. The setting was never neutral. It was just already decided by someone else. Whenever you can, choose the terrain, the time of day you think clearest, the setting where you're comfortable and the other party isn't. Small advantage, but stacked, it changes outcomes. If this is changing how you walk into hard conversations, subscribe. There are 5 more tactics, and the most important one is still ahead. There is a common mistake in how people picture strategic control. They imagine dominating a room, the loudest voice, the most commanding presence. That is not what actually wins. Thomas Shelby rarely tries to control a room directly. He controls what information moves through it. Who knows what and when they find out. A deal falls apart not because he shouted anyone down, but because he made sure the other side learned a crucial fact 3 minutes too late to use it. This is the core difference between force and strategy. Force tries to control people. Strategy controls the conditions people are reacting to. One is exhausting and creates enemies. The other is quiet and creates outcomes. In practice, this means managing what you share, and just as importantly, managing the timing of what you share. The same true information delivered a day earlier or later changes the entire negotiation. Control your timing, not the room's temperature. Notice how rarely Thomas Shelby makes a first move without already knowing or strongly suspecting how it ends. He does not open with an offer and hope. By the time he proposes anything, he has usually already gathered enough information through conversations, through people, through patience, that the proposal is closer to a formality than a genuine gamble. The negotiation looks spontaneous. It almost never is. This reframes what boldness actually means. It is not moving fast and hoping it works out. It is moving only once the outcome is close to certain, then executing that single move with total confidence, which is exactly why it reads as fearless from the outside. Most people confuse confidence with speed. Real confidence is slow research followed by a fast, decisive move once the answer is already known. Before any high-stakes decision, ask what you would need to know to be genuinely certain, not hopeful. Gather that first, move second. Thomas Shelby's business is repeatedly described by the people around him as smaller and weaker than his rivals. He does not hide this. In several scenes, he says it out loud to the very people he's negotiating against. This looks like a mistake until you notice what it does. Naming your own weakness before anyone else can use it against you removes their leverage. There is nothing left to expose. And a smaller, hungrier operation, negotiating without fear of losing everything, can afford to take risks a larger, more comfortable rival cannot. The Stoics would call this turning an external and indifferent thing outside your control into fuel rather than a wound. Your disadvantage is a fact. Whether it controls you is a choice. Most people spend enormous energy hiding their weak points, which is exactly what gives those weak points power over them. Named and owned, a weakness stops being a threat and becomes, at minimum, one less thing anyone can use against you. The final tactic is the one almost no one applies under pressure. Thomas Shelby walks away from deals that look good on paper more often than most people would risk. He is not chasing every available win. He is protecting a longer game most people in the room cannot see yet. A deal that solves this month's problem while quietly costing him position 2 years from now is not a good deal, regardless of the number attached to it. This requires something most negotiators lack in the moment, the willingness to lose the immediate win to protect the long position. Short-term pressure, a deadline, a room full of expectant faces, a fear of looking weak by refusing, pushes almost everyone toward taking whatever is on the table. Marcus Aurelius wrote that it is not death a man should fear, but never beginning to live in the way he ought. Applied here, the risk is not walking away from one deal. It is becoming the kind of person who takes every deal out of fear and never builds the position they actually wanted. Before agreeing to anything under pressure, ask one question. Does this serve where I actually want to be in 2 years? Or does it just end today's discomfort? If it's only the second one, you already have your answer. Here is the line worth remembering, the one that separates everything in this video from simple manipulation. Every tactic here starts with controlling yourself first. What you reveal, when you move, what ground you accept. None of it requires deceiving the person across the table. It requires being more disciplined than they are about your own information, your own timing, your own patience. That is the actual difference between a strategist and a manipulator. A manipulator changes what is true to control you. A strategist simply refuses to hand you the whole truth before it benefits them too. One is dishonest, the other is disciplined. Thomas Shelby, fictional as he is, was written as the second kind, which is exactly why the character still works. You do not need a criminal empire to use any of this. You need the discipline to stop narrating your next move out loud before you've made it. If this changed how you walk into your next hard conversation, subscribe. And if you want the philosophy this is all actually built on, the other two Shelby videos are waiting.